Have you ever caught yourself replaying a conversation for the umpteenth time or going over plans again and again just to make sure that it's all perfect? Or even you make to-do lists about your to-do lists? Most of us just call this overthinking and shrug it off when actually it's inaccurate thinking. And today I'm going to invite you to explore the difference between the two, overthinking and accurate thinking, and how you can stop the internal noise. Welcome to another episode of Coming to Your Senses, where we talk about navigating the labyrinth of the mind and emerging victorious. Now, stopping overthinking and the overthinking spiral was a theme on the Conscious Conversations community a couple of months ago, and it really got the members hot under the collar. They're wanting to, like many people, cut back that internal noise and yet getting so caught up in it at times. And many of us do it. And we do just write it off as, oh, well, that's normal. Everyone does it. But actually, even though everyone does it, doesn't mean that it's a good thing and that we can actually do something about it. We get caught in the assumption that overthinking actually changes the external world, when what it's really doing is impacting the internal world. Overthinking doesn't change what's happening out there. It changes how you're experiencing in here. So, for example, as you may know, if you listened to the podcast earlier this year, toward the beginning of 2025, I was prepping for a trek to Nepal. I was going to be doing something different. And I'd never done this kind of trip before. And I noticed that there was a lot of thinking that was going on and a lot of overthinking that was going on. But the great thing is once I really saw what was going on, I'm going to share with you how I did this, I could change it. And I then got to experience the prep in a very different way. So if you are an overthinker, stick around, because I am going to share with you how you can do something different about it. Overthinking is that excessive thinking. It's the stuff that just goes round and round. It ruminates, and it often adds to an experience of confusion or anxiety or panic or worry or any of those wonderful quote unquote emotions that we experience. And we tend to, as I said at the beginning, we tend to get caught up in thinking that that's normal rather than seeing if we can do something different about it. And accurate thinking is about looking at what's true, what's relevant, and actually what's actionable right now. And the amount of thinking that's going on isn't actually the problem. It's the inaccuracy that matters. It's like you have a pair of glasses on that are smudged. There's some smears on the lens. So you're squinting harder and harder to see whatever it is that you're looking at and get a clearer picture, when actually what you need to do is clean the lenses so that you can get a sharper view and an accurate view of what you're looking at. The thinking mind loves certainty, but it can't have it. But it thinks it can. It convinces us that it can, which is more often what it's doing. And when it realizes that there isn't the certainty or the security that it's looking for, it fills in the gaps in. And I don't think many of us notice, I certainly didn't notice, how much it adds to things, how much it fills in the blank, makes stuff up, but then convinces us that that is the accurate part. That is what's really going on. And unless we stop and we start to look at the perception and see it for what it really is, which our perception, we just go along with it. And then we deem that overthinking, and therefore then the outcome of that, the panic, the worry, the anxiety, whatever the word is, we deem that as normal, rather than actually challenging it and taking a step away. And very often it's our cultures, and especially the work culture. The word busy, for example, tends to get a lot of reward because people think that if I'm busy, then I'm being productive. And then when it comes to actually taking the time to think something through or being quiet in order to be able to gain insight or innovation or creativity, that's seen as quote unquote doing nothing and lazy. And we have this unfair and skewed perception of what's really going on. When actually, if we can give ourselves the space to pause and have that opportunity to reflect on what's going on, then we can start to have different insights. If we're caught in the world of busy, then we are literally just going to be going round and round and round in circles, running on automation. If you've listened to the first episode of Coming to Your Senses, you'll know that in the early 2000s, I experienced a breakdown. I tried different therapies, but it was coaching that truly helped me transform my life. Initially, when I discovered coaching, though, I couldn't afford it. And it was a kind soul who sponsored me not only to have coaching, but also to train and become a coach. And my promise to them was that I would pay it forward. And I've done that in many ways over the years, initially through social media and private Facebook group called Confidence Revolution, and also through Coming to Your Senses, the podcast. But it triggered for me a passion to really want to make and create a secure, supportive space for people to be able to come together and have conversations that transform their lives. So I created the Conscious Conversations community. It's a group where we meet on more than once a month. We have a focused theme, which is guided by the community and facilitated by me. There's hundreds of hours of learning and resources and materials to help you transform your life in a like-minded space. Because I get passionate about it, and because this was my promise to pay it forward, I'm offering you the opportunity to trial it for £1 for the first month. If that appeals to you, then head to juleswyman.online/conscious conversations offer. juleswyman.online/conscious conversations offer to explore what's available for you through being part of a conscious community. The overthinking, what I notice, and the beautiful thing about the community, the Conscious Conversations community for me is they are in charge of what it is that we're going to focus on each month. They vote on the theme. And that, for me, provides an opportunity to really look at something in a lot more of a accurate, deep, explorative way. And so when this theme came up about stopping the overwhelmed thinking spiral, I think was the actual title of it, what I began to notice was how frequently overthinking looks to convince us of a guaranteed outcome, when actually there are no guarantees of any outcomes. So, for example, one of the things that I noticed was someone who spends hours planning out conversations. And I'm not talking about big pitch conversations or interview conversations. I'm talking about everyday conversations by the quote unquote water cooler, or in team meetings that they were planning, looking to avoid mistakes, make sure that they were getting it right, that they were perceived in a certain way as confident, as somebody who knew what they were doing and had it all together. And what I noticed was that the thinking, therefore, then was giving them the illusion, because they were in control of the outcome. It's not true. But it gave them the illusion of feeling safe, rather than actually what was going on was a disconnection to what was happening in the moment. So it had them gripped on trying to remember a script, rather than actually trusting themselves and being in the conversation. And it's one of the, I think one of the biggest hidden causes around burnout and stress and anxiety in many working professionals isn't the overworking, actually, even though many people do have a lot on their plate. But I think it's the overthinking about the work that's causing a lot of the issues. Overthinking conversations, decisions after they're done, looking to gather more and more information so that they can think that they've got that certainty, and then that leading to emotional fatigue without any insight, really. Procrastination is another one that gets masked as preparation when actually it's thinking that's looking to get it right over and over again, or more accurately, is probably not to get it wrong. And I think a big clue for us is when thinking serves anxiety, accuracy is lost. We're then dealing with the outcome of that thinking, that overthinking, which is very often stress, anxiety, panic, worry, concern, sleepless nights, energy loss, etc., rather than dealing with the accuracy. And when we deal with the accuracy, things really change. And I'm always gobsmacked. I genuinely am gobsmacked in conversations, be it on the membership or be it in one-to-one conversations with clients. Even I've done this, I don't know how many times, and I'm still like, oh, wow, this really does work every time, because it blows my mind when you've got somebody who comes in that is really caught up in their thinking, whether it's about work, what to do next in their life, the decisions that they've got going on, whether to stay in a job, whether to change jobs, whether to shift careers. There's so much thinking that's going on, and what I notice is it masks the actual decision for them very often that they already know. I don't give them the answer, but my job is to help them see the stuff that's getting in the way, and this shift that then happens, and the shift towards accurate thinking is actually, I think, a very simple process that we can do. But the first thing that we have to do is become aware and practice awareness. Now, in a coaching situation, I think that this is where most of my work happens. So often I will say to a client, did you hear what you just said? Or can you just repeat that? Or what was going on with what you just said? And they will look at me really blankly, going, I don't know, what did I just say? We don't slow down enough to have an awareness of what we're saying, and therefore then are missing out on hearing ourselves, and therefore then hearing the inaccuracy. Very often within that inaccuracy, when it comes out in those kinds of conversations, is there's a lot of exaggeration, there's a lot of vagary. That's not a word, I've just made it up. There's a lot of assumptions, and so by pausing, slowing down, really listening to yourself, having an awareness, you can truly see what is going on rather than being caught in that automation. Then it's important to recognize the impact that automation is having. Because when thinking is serving anxiety, then accuracy is absolutely lost. And as I say, it may not be anxiety that you're experiencing, it may be something else. But when you are giving yourself the opportunity to get clear, it helps the thinking mind connect the dots. It can see that then the experience that you're having is coming from the thinking that's going on, both of which it's creating, by the way. But until we give it the opportunity to connect those dots, that it's not seeing them as the same thing and recognizing that it's creating it. So that's why it's important. And once you have those two, once you've got clear on that, take a deep breath and start to get really accurate. Now, as one of the community members said, it's not sexy. Accuracy is not sexy. No, it's not. It's not in any way, shape, or form. But it is life-changing. And I would take life-changing over sexy. And I've witnessed this in clients time and time again, because what it creates is this shift into calm, into a freedom of thinking and a relaxed way of being. And that's what everybody, in my experience, gains from being accurate with what's going on in their lives. And it's only from that point, once we've got the accuracy, that you then look for the action points. You know, what actually is needed to be done. And sometimes that might be nothing. So enjoy that free time. But this is when what I mean is when I talk about accurate thinking, this accurate thinking so often creates a sense of calm and focus and confidence back so quickly that that's where I'm always in awe of the coaching process. And I'm always in awe of it for myself as the coach, but also as the coachee, even if I'm coaching myself or when I'm working with my coach. So I'll go back to that real world example of Nepal. Now, when I was packing for Nepal, I've done treks before, but it was 20 odd years ago. So I'm very different. Life is very different to 20 years ago. So this was a very different thing for me to do at this point in my life. And I became aware there was a point, I've got this image in my head of my king size bed being absolutely jam packed full of stuff. And I remember being in this moment where my breath became very short. And once I had the awareness of my breath, and it was this kind of panicky breathing. And what I'm doing, I'm stood in my bedroom looking at my king size bed with all this stuff on, and my breath was becoming really short. So first of all, having the awareness of noticing that, I then remind myself my accuracy is I'm stood in my bedroom. There is nothing need be of danger right now. I'm stood here. What's really going on in my thinking? And what I then began to become aware of was the amount of, well, what if I forget? And what if I'm too cold? Or what if I'm too hot? And what if I haven't got this? Or what if I haven't got that? So all of these what ifs were what was creating that overthinking, was creating the sense of panic for me in that moment. So I took I took some more breaths and then just got out some packing lists. I had two different packing lists, one that was sent by the group organizer, and then one that I was gifted by somebody who had done a similar trek before. So I correlated the two and just very systematically went through them both one by one. Have I got that? And what I noticed was this mound of stuff on the bed suddenly started to go into organized piles. And then things that I didn't need, that I was going the yeah, but what ifs, I was just getting rid of. So all of a sudden it started to minimize things down. And I think it's an illustration of, by being accurate, not only was I reducing the packing, but I was reducing the thinking in the same process. And I noticed that with a client who was really caught up in the fear of losing her job. And the organization that she works in is going through a point of change. And yeah, there are going to be some roles that no longer are required. But when I met her, her initial panic of thinking was going into not only that she didn't have that job anymore, but actually that she was on the streets because she couldn't find another job. And it's really interesting, the catastrophizing of that overthinking and where it can take us to. And like with the packing, by bringing it back into the accuracy of, well, what is, let's deal with what we need to at this moment. It just, I cannot express how shocked I am every time when I get to witness somebody, just their shoulders drop, their breathing calms down, and they suddenly realize that whatever the situation is, they've got more chance of being able to deal with it. And this is what I mean about the difference between overthinking and accuracy, is that you're dealing with reality rather than trying to deal with this made up scenario over and over again. The cost of inaccuracy and the cost of inaccurate thinking and overthinking is time. And it loops us over and over again, which in turn impacts your energy, which then creates mental clutter that creates fatigue. And this disconnects us to the external world. We think that we are performing when actually we're not. We're going through the motions, whether that's in work or whether that's outside of work. And we tend then to not only lose connection with whatever we're doing, but the people around us, and more specifically with us, with ourselves. Overthinking does nothing other than drain your energy, steal your time, and keeps you performing instead of living. And that's why I think that this is an important shift that we can all do with looking at. Now, overthinking is the thinking mind looking to control you and the world around it with guesses, with assumptions. Whereas accurate thinking is you trusting that you can find a way to deal with whatever is. It doesn't mean that that's going to be easy. It doesn't mean that it's going to be simple or quick, but it's learning to trust yourself and deal with what is. Again, I'll give you another real world example of that in and of itself. A client recently, we had a big conversation in a group about trust and the power of trust. And she, the very next day, was offered an opportunity to do a presentation that she openly said to me she would never have said yes to. But she was like, do you know what? I'm going to trust myself that I can do this. And not only did she do it, but she actually discovered that she could and enjoy it. So that's the whole purpose of today's podcast. And it's an invitation really for you to notice a situation where your mind is running wild. And instead of analyzing it for more, pause and ask, what's actually true here? What's actually going on? What genuinely needs my attention? And you might be surprised actually how accurate and simple that is when you get the information that you can deal with it, or you reach out and speak to somebody or ask somebody for help who can help you deal with what it is that's going on. And recognizing that the overthinking most of the time, if not all the time, is not helping you resolve the situation. It's making it bigger than it actually is. So comment below, what's one situation, share, what's one situation that you are catching yourself overthinking is. And remember that you don't have to stop the thinking, you just have to stop believing that every thought deserves your attention, because there's clarity under that noise if you look for it. If this episode has resonated with you, then share it. Share it with somebody who tends to overthink. And together, maybe you can explore the accuracy and look for clarity in a deeper way. Even come and visit my website, juleswyman.online. And if you want more grounded insight, remember to hit subscribe and turn on the bell. Speak to you again soon.